Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with another tutorial video for RPG Maker MZ. And this one is going to be about comparing arrays. And again, it's just going to be a specific piece of comparing arrays. And it's gonna go over a few things about to think about when you're comparing arrays, and then using the JavaScript toString instead of .includes. So I'm gonna show the way I was doing it with the .includes, basically meaning if if this array if this array includes this number and this number and this number, then something will happen, versus just doing the toString and basically checking all of it at the same time. So I'm going to do that, fairly quickly, and I just want to put my caveats out, or at least the main caveat out there is that, like I usually say, I am not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm still learning. I've been working with RPG Maker MZ for about 2.5 years now, on and off as a hobby, and I'm trying to learn JavaScript through an online course, through a book, and also getting help from the rpgmaker.web.com forums when I need to. So I always try to say, I'm not saying this is the best way to do something. I'm not trying to say this is the only way to do something. I'm not trying to say that there might not be plugins that do similar things. I just am trying to share things that I have learned, I have tested, I have experimented with. They work for what I'm using it. And if it helps other people, awesome. So let me just show you a little bit of things to think about when you're trying to compare two arrays. Now, why you might want to do this could be varied. I'm using it specifically in a Sudoku puzzle right now, Sudoku puzzle game, but I've also used it in other aspects before. But this is just kind of giving knowledge. So here, I'm going to show you what happens if you do this. We have two arrays. So we have control variable 48, which is going to be an array, and it's being set to an array of 1 through 9. Okay, and then the second variable 49, is being set to the same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These arrays are the same. Okay, they are the same. And so if we just use a simple conditional branch, if this variable is equal to this variable, then what's going to happen, right? And so first thing it's going to do is it's going to show a text. What are the values of variable 48? What are the values of variable 49? And if they're the same, it's going to say they're equal. Otherwise, it's going to show the values. And if they're supposedly not the same, then it's going to say that didn't work, right? And so what you would think, if you're comparing just two variables, if variable 1 is 5 and if variable 2 is 5, then they're equal, right? Arrays don't do that. So let's see. We're going to test it. So it says, okay, here's my two arrays. That didn't work. So this is saying those two arrays are not equal, right? So what this is telling us is that you can't compare two arrays by something as simple as, well, all the values in the arrays in the two arrays, they're exactly the same and they're in exactly the same place. But you can't just simply compare and say if this array is equal to this array, because it doesn't work. All right, so let's go up here and let's take something similar. We have that same array, 48, set to 1 through 9. We have the second array set to 1 through 9, but in a different order, right? In a different order. So what we're going to do here is we're going to show the values of those two arrays. Then we're going to use this .toString functionality. And what it's going to do is it's going to say if variable 48, which is the first array, and it's going to use this .toString. If that's equal, it means if it's equal to the variable 49 dot toString, okay, so basically it's converting these numbers into a string, right? Variables can hold numbers or strings, right? So a number is like 1, 5, 7. A string is like, usually we associate that with words, right? Anything you put in quotation marks. This is turning these numbers into a string so that it can compare them to say, is this string the same as this string? All right, and then if that's true, right? If it's equal, if these two arrays where the values have been turned to strings, if those are equal, then it's going to set the value of a variable, variable 3, to a value of 1. Else, so otherwise, if they're not equal, it's going to set it to a value of 2. Then we're going to look and see what is the value of variable 3 to see if they're equal. Okay, so let's see what that does. So here's the values of the two arrays, and the variable 3 gets a value of 2, meaning they're not the same. Those two strings are not the same. Okay? And we can see that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is not the same as 7, 2, 4, 1, 9, 8, 3, 5, 6. So how do we change that? How do we affect that? Well, the next part is we can use this script. So I think I've highlighted this before, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to sort that array and make it, this particular script will sort it from lowest value to highest value. So $game capital variables dot value 49, that's the variable number, which is an array, dot sort, right? And then in open parentheses function, open parentheses a comma b, close parentheses, and then curly bracket, return a minus b, closing curly bracket, and closing parentheses. And again, I think I've said this before recently, be very, very careful when you're replicating something like this to make sure that all of your parentheses have a match, right? If you have, because sometimes when you get into a script, you might have 3, 4, 5 open parentheses. Well, you got to have the same amount of closing parentheses. And sometimes at the end of a script, you might have closing parentheses, closing parentheses, closing parentheses. And it looks kind of weird if you're not used to it. I'm certainly not used to it. So this script is going to sort that array, okay? That's what this is doing. Then we're going to display, using show text, the value of those variables, and we'll see that it got sorted so that instead of being this 724, it's going to go 1, 2, 3. It's going to count upwards. Then we'll use that exact same script to compare them. And I didn't do it last time, so I'll do it this time. So making it look a little bit, see if you can see it a little easier. If open parentheses, and then we have to use the variable for the, the script here for the variable. So if $game capital variables dot value open and close parentheses 48 dot toString open and close parentheses, so converting that variable 48 array into a string, right? Not numbers, but a string. If it's equal, so if it's equal to, and then you repeat $game variables dot value 49 dot toString open and close parentheses, and then you've got that other parentheses because there was one here, right? So you got to make sure you have a match for each one. So if this array that's been converted to a string is equal to this array that's been converted to a string, then what are we going to do? Well, open curly bracket, $game variables dot set value. So we're going to set the value of variable 3, comma, to a 1. And then you see the closing curly bracket there. Else, so if it's not equal, open curly bracket, setting the variable 3, comma, to a 2, and then our closing curly bracket, right? So be very careful with the open and closes. Make sure they match. So again, this is repeating what it did before. It's going to show the value of the variable, 1 or 2, and we'll see what happens, right? So here we go. Let's do the whole thing. All right, so first, it shows us the value of our arrays with numbers. And then it says, after it compared the strings, it says, no, that's a value of 2. They're not equal. They're not the same. So now we're going to sort that second array. Now they are the same as far as the order of the numbers. So then we're going to convert them to a string, and it says, hey, they are the same. Variable 3 has a value of 1, so they are the same. Okay? So that's how you can use the toString to convert the number values of an array to a string for comparison purposes. And this allows you to sort that array, right? To from lowest to highest in this case. You can flip it around and go from high to low, whatever you need at the time, okay? So that is the simple functionality there. Now let me show you the comparison to what I was doing to what I'm doing now. So we'll just, I don't think I really changed anything, so we're going to close that. So, whoops. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go down here to a common event. Okay, so what I was doing originally with my Sudoku puzzle was I wanted to compare if 9 squares, like 9 squares in a column, 9 squares in a row, 9 squares in a group for a Sudoku circle, if those squares included the numbers 1 through 9. So the way I was doing that was I was taking an empty array, I was using a script to push the value of 9 variables, 1 for each square, pushing it to the array. So you see the array 682 is empty. This script is pushing the value of these variables to the 682 array. So the first thing I do is I would push those 9 variable values into this array. And there's an easier way to do this with a loop, which I think I highlighted in a previous video, and I'll highlight it in the new way I do it. And then the script is using the .includes to check to see if the array 682 includes the number 1 and the array 682 includes the number 2 and. So this script, this entire script, is basically checking to see, does the array 682 include a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, 8, and a 9, right? It has to include, does it include all of these, right? Because that's what the and is. If it was or, it would be a vertical line and a vertical line to do an or check. But this is checking, does this variable, this array, have all these values to it? And if so, right, then the variable 142 is going to be set to true. Otherwise, the variable 142 is going to be set to false, right? So again, push 9 values to an array, check with the .includes to see if that array contains the values 1 through 9. If so, this variable is going to be set, I'm sorry, not a variable, this switch, this game switch is going to be set to true, and if it doesn't contain 1 through 9, it's going to be set to false, right? So I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It was a switch, game switches, right? So that's the old way that I was doing my solve Sudoku puzzle. Now, if I go back up to the new way I'm doing it, it's much, much easier. So for instance, instead of that script that pushes 9 variables separately to an array, I can use a simple loop to do that. And I've highlighted this before. How do I do that? It's because one of my previous videos very recently showed how to combine two variables to equal the value of a variable ID. So if my variables are sequential, right, for what I need, here I'm taking a variable 115, setting it to 121, because that's my first variable that I want to push to an array is variable 121. So I'm setting this solution push value to 121. Then I have one single script, and it's the value, okay, of which variable? This one, 303, that is a array. See, 303 is an empty array. So 303, the empty array, I'm pushing into 303. What am I pushing? Well, I want to push the value of a variable. And what I'm doing here is, instead of saying just the variable, I'm using another variable to equal the value. Why am I doing that? Because I'm going to loop through here. So here, this part here, right? I'm going to open this up. This part here is what is identifying the ID of this variable. So I'm using a variable as the ID of another variable. So $game capital variables dot value 115. So whatever value variable 115 has is going to be used as the ID of this variable. And you can see here, remember what I said about all those closing parentheses? How you have to make sure you have enough and you don't miss one, because otherwise it'll throw an error. So again, what's happening in this script is this, this variable, it's highlighting everything for me. So this variable, there we go. So I'm starting with the value of a variable, and instead of having a number within these parentheses, I'm using another, sorry, it keeps doing that. I'm using another variable as the ID of this variable. And I'm pushing, .push, the value of this variable, okay? And so because I started with 121, because I want it to be variable 121, once it pushes that to the empty array, I increase this by 1. So, and then I increase my loop count. I'm keeping track of how many times I'm doing the loop. So the first time, the variable that I'm using is 121. Add 1 to it. The next time it's 122. The next time it's 123. The next time it's 124. And it keeps doing that until my variables are all used up. You notice I'm doing it 81 times because my variables are sequential. They're variables 121 up through, I can't remember, whatever it is, 201 maybe, something like that. So I'm just doing a simple loop to push 81 values, 81 variables into an array. So again, that's much, much, much easier than doing a single line of script for each time you want to push something to the array. Then down here is that toString. Again, so instead of doing the if this variable dot includes 1, dot includes 2, dot includes 3, dot includes 4, it's a simple thing of saying, hey, if the array 303 converted into a string is equal to the array 304 that's been converted to a string, then set this to a value of 1 or 2, and then do something with it, right? And here's where I'm doing this. I probably I should have changed these to switches, because I could have done that. I remember I showed that in the previous example. I could have turned a switch on or off based on this. When I built this, I must have forgot about it, and instead of setting the switch, I set the value of a variable, and then I do my check. If this variable 114 is 1, turn this switch on, right? Instead, I could have just done it here. I forgot about that, and I haven't gone back and fixed it. And that's pretty much all I wanted to show. So again, comparison wise, right? If you're looking to compare, you have this concept of pushing values into an array one line at a time, and you have the idea of doing a script, a conditional script, to say if this array includes 1 and it includes 2 and it includes 3, instead of doing all of this, right, and doing that over and over again however many times you need to, instead you can do this loop type of thing to push however many variables you need, right? In my instance, I'm pushing 81 variables into an array, and then you can do this toString in order to compare the two arrays to see if they are essentially equal, if the strings of the arrays are equal. And that's pretty much all I wanted to show. So, once again, just as a reminder, you can't compare two arrays like you would regular variables. You just can't do that. That's the first thing I showed. And then if you have arrays that are different values, right? If you use the .toString, it's basically just converting these numbers, individual numbers, into a string, like it would with, say, words or something. And when you go to compare those, of course, they're not going to be the same. But you can use this script to sort either from low to high or high to low, right? You just have to change the script a little bit. And then you can compare them, and they will be equal. Okay? And that's it. That's what I wanted to show. You can do an awful lot with arrays. And so the more I work with them, the more things I learn and say, hey, you know what? I can incorporate that here, or do something different. In an RPG type of game, you could store things like player stats or enemy stats in an array. And for instance, skills, right? I'm not talking about default RPG Maker functionality. I'm talking about, let's say, I did a previous video on this. If you wanted to have your characters be able to learn, 50 skills, and those skills are going to be increased through usage, or however you want to increase them, you can save all of those skills and stats and whatever into an array for that character, and then anytime they need to change, you can just update that value, and then when you need it, you can pull it out, and you can do that sort of thing. So anyway, arrays are very, very useful, and you can do a lot with arrays just by, again, looking up some JavaScript stuff and then trying to figure out how to incorporate it. All right, anyway, I hope that helps. If you are playing around with arrays and you have a reason to need to do this, whether it be pushing values to an array or using that .includes, again with the and or the two vertical lines for or, and the equal, right? If all that sort of stuff, and using the .toString to change the value of an array into a string. So if any of that's helpful, awesome. Again, if you find these type of tutorials helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, getting notifications, leaving comments. Love to see comments. Love to see if this is helpful. Love to see suggestions, or if you have used something from a tutorial and it allowed you to do something and experiment with it, I love to hear that. So anyway, again, I hope this was helpful. And I think the next video I'm going to do is going to be a quick demo of the functionality of my Sudoku game the way it stands now. It's still a work in progress, but I do have a lot of functionality that's working. So in the meantime, folks, I hope you're having a great day. Happy game developing, happy gaming, and I will talk to everyone later. Bye.